Good day, everyone. Today I have Vincent with me, and we'll be going through chapter 9 of Intro of Python. Yeah, Python crash course, and we'll be looking at some examples of classes, like the use of classes and yeah, and objects, which are instances of classes. So on my screen, we can see here that the core concept of classes, you know, object-oriented programming models, real-world um, entities using two main concepts. We have classes and we have instances. A general blueprint or set of instructions representing a category of things. Yeah, a generic template for a dog, for example. Mm. And then we have instances or objects. Those are that's a specific individual created from the blueprint. Yeah. Example, a specific dog named Willie, aged 6. The process of creating this object is called instantiation. Okay. So basically what this is saying is we have objects, like everything in real life is like we are the objects. But we have something called the object maker, which is the class. So anything that is being made by a class is an object, which is a specific instance. Okay. We have key syntax when creating objects. So you can see the key syntax. We have methods. Key syntax. We have methods. A function written inside a class that define what the object can do. So basically, methods are things that an object can do. Yeah. We have the init. Um, inside after creating the object constructor, which is a class. The class after creating a class constructor, we have to always initialize. This is to that's what starts the whole creation of the object. Yeah, method. Yeah, um, a special automatic method that runs whenever a new instance is created to set up an individual data. Yeah, and we also have the keyword self, the self parameter. It always has to be passed in this init. Yeah, uh, required reference to the specific instance itself, allowing method to access objects' unique data. So without including the self, it's going to be very hard to access those specific methods of that object. Okay. And we also have attributes. Attributes are um, yeah, variables attached to an instance via self. So we are going to be able to access those attributes through the self in here. But we'll be looking at examples here. So this is what we have here. Yes. So as we said, this is a dog class. I mean the dog object that is being created. You see the dog object is here called Willie and the age is 6. Another dog called Lucy and is 3 years old according to dog age. Yeah, but this class is what is being used to create this specific instance. And by default, we always have to put in this in it. And this is what initializes everything. And after that, we have to put in this keyword self. This self is referring to the specific instance of the dog that is going to be created, of which is an object. And to be able to access all of these, this self has to be present in the class constructor, the object which is this dog. So to put in anything, so these are parameters. Yes, these parameters are here. You can see we have three parameters. The first one always have to be the self. You can see the self here. So as we try to call this dog class, you see we put in only two parameters. The first one is referring to that instance. So if we want to assign the name of the dog, this is an argument. It goes into here as a parameter, and it's going to be here, this right here. This is the key, and then this is the value. Let's not confuse them, but that's what it is. So we always have to start with the self and the name. The self.name, self.age. So whatever you pass in here is going to go into self.name, and whatever you pass in here, age, is going to be self.age. Okay, so that's how we create individual objects using the class. Okay, so yeah, we can run this and then we see the output of it. Okay, let's do that quickly and we see. So we can see over here, it says, my dog is Willie. Lucy is now sitting. So because of this, of line number 18, see in line number 18, we can see that there's a string over here. Then it goes into the object that has been created in line number 14. See, line number 14, we created an instance of a dog, starting with a capital D here, shows that this is a class. And then these are the arguments we passed in. So it goes in here in the constructor and constructs a full dog for us. This here these are all attributes. Line number 16 and 17 are attributes. And in line number 9, this one here, there's a method. This is what a dog can do, right? So because the dog can sit, so it's like so we call this a method. Those are the actions. Mm. So basically, line number 14, we've created the dog, an instance of a dog, and then we've assigned it into my dog. So now my dog now is a complete dog object called Willie, and the age is 6. So in line number 18 here, what we're doing is we're just printing out that name. That means we're referring to only the name of it. So this Willie here is being passed in here into this parameter, and that over here is being assigned to this. So you just say my dog dot name is gonna refer to that one using the self. Okay. And you see in line number 19, your dog dot sit. So line number 19, we are not using any of the attributes, you are rather using a method. So the dog dot sit, so it's gonna as this is also created. Line number 15, you see what I've highlighted over here? We create an instance of the dog, and then after creating the instance, we store all of that into this variable here called your dog. And now we're trying to refer to the the action that a dog can do, which is the method. And the method is called sit. That's why we put in dot sit here. And we don't forget this brackets. This what shows that it's a method. Yeah. Without putting a bracket, it's not gonna work. So if you like, you can also debug this. So we see what is happening in here. What is this? All right, so now let's start it. Already running. Okay, the diagram's already running. So let's step over. So now we're in a global. That's where we're creating the instance of a dog class. Special variables. So now it's going through. What it does is passes the code from top to bottom. Nothing is going to happen yet. It's just looking through the code we've done. Here it starts. This is where it starts. So we can see a class variable, a dog. Turn it none for now. Let's skip in. So let's open this. So we can see it's creating the dog for us. So now when we come here, okay, this right here is like the position in memory where it has stored it. Okay, so print, what is going to happen here? Let's step over. It does the printing for us, and it shows that in the terminal. Let me show the terminal. Let's step over. Yeah, so you can see my dog is Willie. That has been printed out. And now it's highlighting this one. So after I step over, it's gonna print out number 19 now. So now you see it. Now we're done with the debugger. So basically that is what is happening in here by creating specific instances of, of an object, yeah, using a class. Okay, so now working with attributes and modifying values. So after creating this specific, we're able to change specific characteristics of those objects. And we can also modify the functions, I mean, the functionalities, which are called methods of that object. So let's delve into that. Now, attributes can be assigned explicit values. Right? Attributes can be assigned explicit values during creation, of course. So what we've done here, um, we can create explicit values, or they can be set to a default value inside the init without being requested as a parameter. So over here, what we did is a default. We haven't assigned it we haven't given it a default value. What we did so that it can be able to accept parameters from users when creating a specific instance of the object. So there are three ways of modifying attributes. The text the text demonstrates how an attribute like a car odometer, yeah, can change over time. Okay, car odometer is like the screen inside the when you sit inside the screen behind the steering. That's the odometer directly. So we can change the attributes directly by changing the value by targeting the attributes name via dot notation. Yes, we can change. We'll look at examples, and we can also change through a method. Yeah. Passing a new value into a function that updates the attributes internally. Ideal for adding business logic or registrations. Okay. So the first method is we can use this how to so we can do it directly. We can modify the attribute directly. We can modify it through a method, and we can also use increment. Yes. So let's delve into the examples over here. So we've created a car class here, which is supposed to make specific instances of a like the objects of the car. So over here we can also see the init to initialize the creation process. We have self here, which is for the individual's attributes. Yes. So it's accepting the make, it's accepting the model and also the year, as we can see. And we assign this make to self, the make, the model to self, the model year to this. And we also have odometer. You see by here, by default, is 0. You see, um, directly. So over here, that's what we're doing here, directly via dot notation. So you can see dots. So, yeah. So we are using a dot notation here, this method, to modify it dot 30 dot 23. So it's no more going to be 0. It's going to be that's so that's what we're doing in the okay. And then this right here is a method, and this also is also a method. So our first method is supposed to update the odometer, yeah, such that it's just not going to be able to roll back. You see, the odometer always goes up in value, and it's not allowed to, the mileage of a car. It's either where it is or it goes up. It can never come down. So if the mileage that we pass in is greater or equal to the one that we put in here, then it's going to allow us to put it in. And it's going to allow us to, and that's going to be stored in here. Yeah, but in case we put in a lesser value, which is not greater or equal to what is already being stored in here, then what is going to happen is going to print out a message and to tell you that you cannot roll back an odometer. Yeah. So that is the method. That's the way we can do it. And another way is to use the increment. That's the point number 3. We're using the increment. So this time around, we are not swapping the entire value in there. What we're doing is we incrementing. So whatever value you're incrementing by is going to be added. You see, this is a concatenation here. Then it's going to be added to the original that is there, whatever the original is. See, we're using the increment method. So it goes straight to the increment method and gets this specific um, attributes and appends to that attribute and increase it. So whatever is in there is going to add what you added in here to it. So those are the 3 ways we could modify attributes in a of a class. Yeah. So we have advanced advanced relationships, inheritance, and composition. Okay. So let's look at inheritance. When a new class is specialized, no, when a new class is a specialized version of an existing class, it can inherit all the attributes and methods from the parent class, the superclass. Superclass is always the parent. Yeah. The new class is the child class, which is the subclass. So the super is always the parent class, and then the subclass is the child class, which are inheriting from the parent. Okay. So we use this super and with the opening bracket, closing bracket, and we have a dot here, dot init. So instead of just having on the VS Code machine, instead of just having the init, we have to first start with a super. Yeah, and that is going to include the name of the parent. The name of the parent class is going to go into the super. Then dot init. Then we have Over here, we're gonna put in self, and yeah, and so on. And any other parameters you want to add. Okay, let's say a special function used inside a child class to call the parent class. Yes, so this is what we use. It's a special function used inside a child class to call the parent class. Yeah, initialization tool. You don't just initialize using init, you have to use super. So method overriding. If a parent method doesn't fit a child class, you can redefine it. Yes, because it's going to interact. So you can redefine the values or of a method uh, with with the exact name, so that it can be able to override it inside it. And you're going to do that inside the child class, right? We have composition. Yeah. As a class grows more complex, part of it can be broken down into smaller standalone classes. Because sometimes when we're creating a class, it could be very complex, but we could break it down into smaller chunks by creating standalone classes, which are going to be subclasses. You can then use an instance of that independent class as an attribute inside your main class. Yes, you can do that as well. So let's copy this and look at how it works. So let's run our code here and see. Let's go into terminal. Let me fix this real quick. Okay, so this is also using the first, it starts from here. So I need to put this in there. Okay, now we can run it to see. Click on this. Okay, so it runs perfectly fine, and we can see the output here. That says this car doesn't have gas tank. So because you see, generally we know that cars have fuel tank, right? But in case we're creating a class now that doesn't need to create objects with fuel tank. For instance, now we're creating electric cars. Now you see, electric cars don't use fuel tank. So instead of so the way we can what do you call it? We can tame or make some of the original methods inactive is by redefining those specific methods using those same method names. You see, electric cars, fuel tank. It says this car does not have a fuel tank. So that's what we're doing. So because this is the original. This is the super class over here. Super class is the car itself. And so now by creating electric car, we wanted to inherit some of the properties I mean, we wanted to inherit some of the attributes and methods from the ancestor, which is the class. I mean, which is the car class. So we're using the super. Yes, this one helps us to grab everything, and we always have to put in the name of the parent class in here. That is going to allow us to pull down every single attributes and method. So we can see that this one here, full tank. Yeah. We also have the battery class that has been created. We have what we call composition. You see now this car um, uh, this car creation class, it gets more complex as time goes on. When we're creating more and more characteristics that each and every car object is going to have. So we them down into small chunks. Now this battery class, it could have been part of the car class, but we separated it, and this is called composition. Those are some individual components. They all add up to what makes it. So if you want to get access to that, you can see over here. So we're referring to this as a method over here, and it works perfectly fine. That's why when we ran it, everything was okay in the terminal. So basically, that is it on class. So what we've seen today, we've seen the basic concept about classes, the core concept, which is the class, which is the main blueprint, and we have instances of that class, which are called objects. And we've also seen the syntax of how to create an object. We always have to put in the init. And we also have keywords called self, and we know where self goes. Self is used in assigning each and every single parameter that is going to be passed in. So self.make, and it's just a nice practice to give it the same name, so it makes sense to each and every developer that comes to read your code. And we also have attributes. So this whole thing here is an attribute. It's an attribute, and the value is passing into that attribute. So we've seen that, and we've also seen we're working with attributes and modifying the values. So we've seen that we are able to modify it directly. We're able to modify it through a method, and we can also use increment. So we've seen those ways as well. And yeah, we've also seen inheritance, how individual mm, individual classes can inherit from the superclass. Yes, and we've also seen composition, whereby you can break down uh, a class constructor into smaller chunks, then you connect them together. Yeah, instead of having um, a huge class with so many things going on in there. So yeah, thank you so much, Vincent, for being here. Hope you enjoy. Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you.